Hi there. I wanted to talk a little bit about times in our lives where we might be experiencing a time in the wilderness. I call it wilderness time. One of my old directors in Mary Kay, she called it floor time, or basically meditation time, right? But maybe a time in your life or that you might be either on purpose or not on purpose having quiet time, right? Or you're not around a lot of people, or you are basically taking time to yourself to think, to meditate, to gather your thoughts, or to try to let God talk to you, right? Many times in my life, I've experienced either a forced or a willing an adult timeout, right? Where, I call it wilderness time because if you notice in the Bible, quite a lot in the Bible, whenever Jehovah God was preparing somebody for a purpose or preparing somebody to do his divine will or mission or whatever that was, to speak up or, to preach or to do something, right? He would prepare his worshipers or prophets or whatever they were. He would prepare them by having them take some alone time in the wilderness, right? Or, just meditation time. So like I'm thinking about, like Moses, and Moses ran because he murdered the Egyptian, remember? And he didn't want to, get in trouble, and he ran. Okay, he didn't want to, really own up to that, so he ran, right? And you could call him avoiding, because he was avoiding his punishment or whatever, right? He ran right into the wilderness, right? And remember, Jehovah was talking to him and had him there 40 years. Preparing him for the greatest mission of his entire life, right? Which was to go and tell Pharaoh to let his people go, right? I mean, literally, Jehovah had to work on him and talk to him. And actually, it turned out to be, the best thing for him because, he found his wife, everything, out there, right? But also, there have been other times, I think about Jonah, when Jonah ran from what God told him to do. And he was a runner. He was avoiding his responsibility. He was scared. And what happened? He ended up getting swallowed up by a big fish. And Job said, okay, I'm going to let you take some time out. You can do your little time out over there, because when you get in that big old fish down there, when you're in that belly, you're going to be scared or whatever. And you're going to cry out to me. And guess what? I'm going to hear you. Because Jehovah can hear you pray to him wherever you are, right? You could be in the belly of a fish. You could be, in the desert. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter where you are. Jehovah can hear you, right? And so yeah, he ran or whatever, but he had to do his floor time or timeout, and to help prepare him. I mean, even Jesus Christ, had his quiet time before he died on a stake for us, right? He had his quiet time. And there's a lot of countless of other, stories in the Bible of Jehovah's prophets and whatnot who had to endure some sort of trial, but quiet time, where they got to be alone and FaceTime with Jehovah God, where they got to actually be prepared mentally, usually mentally and emotionally, for whatever was put before them that they had to go do, right? Now, I say forced meditation time or not, right? Because there's a reason why in the Bible he always gives us the encouragement to meditate on a regular basis, to take quiet time with Jehovah God, like, when you read or when you pray, but to just take a little bit of quiet time, right? Because it's in that quiet time when you are still that you can receive the messages from him. Of course, it's best if you are clear-headed and you're not drinking, smoking, or addicted to anything, because that you will probably get some messages. They just, it'll be a spirit, but it may not be the Holy Spirit, right? Okay, so when you can be clear-headed, not on anything, and but also learn to quiet your mind, control your breathing, and allow Jehovah to talk to you, or you go in prayer, that is when you will receive the best direction from him. And I say forced or not, and the reason why I say that is because you have the ability, everybody has the ability and the choice to take time out of their day, whether it be 5 minutes or longer, whatever, to meditate and to try to connect with God, right? But when we don't do that and he's trying to get our attention, what he will do is sit your butt down. And and I'm going to give you an example of that. You might be like, next thing you might find yourself in jail or something like that, or just in a place of, I call it hurry up and wait, where you really is like, you can't do anything, or, you're just literally in a kind of a timeout, a quiet before the storm, because it's usually Jehovah's trying to grab your attention, and he's wanting you to meditate and to think about something, think about your decisions, think about either what's happening or what's going on, but just allow him to speak to you, see whatever is, on his heart to talk to you, right? This is legitimately, this is exactly how it was done in the Bible. This is how it was done in the Bible. And this is how we are encouraged to continue to do, to always meditate. When you do your Bible reading or whenever you're in your prayer and everything, that you take your time to get quiet. Selah. And that's Hebrew for rest, right? Just Selah, rest time. That is in the Bible. One of the things that came to me many years ago during a rest and hurry up, wait, slow down, get in Jehovah's face moments that I had, right? This was many years ago when I was going through a lot with my first husband. And I had to find this again, but somewhere I read or saw that the word woman or wife. Now I can't remember. I'm going to have to go and find that. I know I didn't get rid of it because I know I have my research somewhere in one of my notebooks, one of my 50 million notebooks. But anyway, I remember reading, I think it was in Hebrew, okay, we all know that woman means, you come from the man, right? Because we're literally, flesh of his rib, his rib, I know that meaning, but I don't know if it was a second meaning or if it was I just remember reading it somewhere and I remember writing it down, but I don't remember if it was Greek or if it was Hebrew. I really can't even remember because it's been so long. When I say so long, I'm talking about this was when my first husband was alive. And so, man, I'm just going to have to find it. But anyway, I remember reading this definition called, it said, I think it was wife. And like I said, I think it was Hebrew or Greek, but it said one who answers when called. Okay, so one who answers when called. It was another, like I said, it was another definition, a meaning or whatever. I'm going to find it and post it. Anyway, I remember when I read that the first time because I was having a moment where I was a little bit upset with my husband and some of his decisions and stuff, but I felt like my decisions were more, grounded and more founded, more spiritually, everything. It was I wasn't making any bad decisions. I wasn't doing anything wrong, illegal or anything. And I just couldn't understand why I was needing an adjustment, right? I was needing an adjustment in God's view on women, right? And or specifically wife, not women, wife. It was specifically wife, wifely duties, wife. But anyway, I remember reading that, and I remember thinking like, oh my God. That means I gotta like it when I'm called. Like I gotta like it when this man calls my name. Or, basically like you're one who answers when called. It's like, you are, it was like, you are the helpmate, right? You're the helpmate. Now, it doesn't mean you got to do everything or whatever. We all know that. But you are that other person's half, right? You help them. And that's what, part of being a wife is, right? But anyway, I remember when I got that, and it kind of like, I had to meditate on that for a while. And it was kind of a hard pill to swallow in one sense, because, I was always calling my husband to do things. But in this particular case, what Jehovah was wanting me to see, that, you should, you have to think very carefully before you get married, but especially women, because if we are called to be that person's rib, that person's helpmate, and we are to answer when called, you should like his voice, right? I remember I already knew that, and like I remember thinking that even with my second husband, like I had already been through that research or whatever, meditate on that, right? But thinking about a person's voice, right? A person's voice can have a very strong effect on you, right? Like I think about my dad's voice. My dad, he was a public speaker, and he had a great voice, and he had a very calm and soothing nature to his voice, and he did that to a lot of people. Like he made a lot of my friends and family, like he made a lot of people like feel calm in their spirit. And it was his voice, and it was his nature. I have a cousin who's like that too. I have a cousin who's very laid back and very calm in his voice, right? So, a person's voice can, do something to your spirit, to your energy, it can affect you, good or bad, right? But in particular, when it made me realize and think that, as a wife, one who answers when called, that means, like I said, when he calls your name or when he calls you, you're to answer. And if you are under your breath going, or, again, oh my God, I don't want to hear his voice, or just cringe, like, that's a problem. That's a problem. And I can promise you that I experienced that before. And it did become a problem. It did. And especially because, when I remember thinking I'm supposed to be one who answers when called, and I didn't want to answer the call. I did not want to answer that call. And that was the truth of the matter, right? So, a person's voice, but specifically I'm talking to women, like a man's voice, when you're dating somebody or you're with somebody or you're, thinking of, marriage or whatever, and you really look into the word wife, right? Hebrew and Greek, like what it means, the definition, how, woman, what that means, the biblical, definition of a wife, right? Okay. And if it, that's if you're a spiritually minded person, that's if you are a Bible reader, and if you believe in God and everything. I do. So that's how I talk, right? So I'm just talking the way, for me, again, like I always say, this is my channel, and this is what I say, this is what I talk, because this is mainly for my boys and for my benefit, things like that. I'm not here to debate whether or not God exists or anything like that, because this is not the channel for you. Anyway, I remember specifically one person that I did actually meet, and I dated for a little while. And I remember when I first heard his voice, the first time I heard his voice, I remember thinking like, wow, I could answer that call. I remember thinking that because he had the kind of voice that was kind of like a radio voice. It was like a radio speaker's voice. It was beautiful. His voice was actually very beautiful. And I remember thinking to myself when I first heard that, and I thought that thought, and then I remember thinking, I wonder if this feeling is gonna fade, like if I'm gonna be annoyed after some time whenever I hear his voice, like is there gonna be an annoyance? Only because I've already experienced that. Like I experienced enjoying my husband's voice, and not minding whenever I had to, answer his voice or answer his call, right? Like they call you, hey Mel, or whatever, right? Like I didn't mind that, I liked it, whatever. But then I kind of experienced the opposite in my second marriage, and it was through no fault of his own. So it's just what it is. So, but when he would call and I would hear his voice and I would be like, oh God. And it eventually became like that, and I was also very jumpy too. I was also very jumpy because he had a kind of voice where it kind of, and it was just always very abrupt. and eventually, like it actually did bother my spirit, right? Anyway, I remember thinking that about this person that I dated, and I remember wondering, like, I wonder if I'm going to get sick and tired of hearing his voice or sick and tired of hearing my name, and it was actually a thought that I had in my head. I never shared this, but it was just a thought that I had in my head, and I kind of just monitored my feedback, right? And what I found was very interesting was that I actually grew to love it. Like I actually grew stronger and liked hearing him call my name, if you want to say, like calling you or calling you on the phone or whatever, just calling. Like I never actually, instead of it getting annoying or more annoyed or worse or whatever, but it actually got to be a stronger call, right? It got to be more meaningful, okay? And I didn't have that feeling. I actually didn't have that feeling. So I just find that very interesting because people's voices, and especially if you are thinking about getting married or you think about dating or whatever, a man's voice in particular has a certain frequency and a certain way that it will resonate, right? And again, like I said, I didn't think too much about this. Definitely I didn't think about it at all with my first marriage, but thankfully I like Travis's voice. But I did know about it by my second one, but I never thought about it getting more annoyed, But now this is actually a concept that I actually am aware of, right? And I'm cognitively aware of it, And like this is also something that you don't go around and say when you're talking to somebody new or when you're trying to date or whatever. You don't say to them, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like your voice, But it is something that I've been keeping in the back of my head because it's very particular, right? It's very particular. Like what one woman likes in one voice or in another man's voice, another woman may not like in another man. You know what I mean? Like it's like a signal. It's kind of like a signal call if you like each other's voice. And I think that it's something that we overlook, right? But that's one of those things that I like to put under the list of how you know if you have met your soulmate or a soulmate. One, because we all have more than one soulmates, right? And I kind of didn't think about putting that under the list, but I think that could be definitely a good sign you could put, on the list as one of the identifying marks of a soulmate is that their voice and the energy, the way it resonates in you, could definitely be a sign as to whether or not that's your soulmate, right? So anyway, that was something that I was meditating a little bit on and wanted to kind of just share. And I think that's it for this one. Bye.